Back to
Like it
normal.
never happened again.
Yep.
So weird.
Knock on wood. You
Yeah,
can get it
knock on
again,
wood.
you know.
Well, I'm
You can
boosted.
get it more than
so-
once.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals. We'll start the meeting off with a couple housekeeping items. Can I get a motion to approve a bill from the Worcester Telegram and Gazette for January 31st, 2022 legal notices in the amount of $588?
Move to approve?
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay. Our first hearing. It's a continuation of a hearing to hear the appeal of, excuse me for 1 second. Yes, to hear the appeal of George LeConte, 276 Plantation Street, Worcester, Mass., for a special permit to the town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaws under section 4B to reconstruct a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling upon property located at 29 Smith Road in the Residence B2 district. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 51, Plot 033000. Can the applicant please step forward?
Hi, my name is George LeConte.
Mr. LeConte, you want to have a seat right here? Thank you,
You can get
so
comfortable.
we can hear you. Hello.
I'm Ron Searles, designer,
Thank you, Ron.
working on it.
We come before you tonight to ask you for a special permit for 29 Smith Road. I'm looking to replace the existing structure with a new house on the same footprint. And we spoke last month via Zoom, and your board actually told me to go back and make some changes. And my architect here, he drew up some new plans and moved the wall in question. We moved it back 1 foot 9 inches away from the neighboring property. And we also spoke with the Fire Chief Colby, and he requested that we put in a sprinkler system inside the home, which we agreed to do. I hope these modifications make the neighborhood and your board more comfortable.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. McAllister?
I would just call the board's attention to the updated plot plan in your files and confirm that the fire department has withdrawn their request to condition any decision on this property with a residential sprinkler system. So that is no longer in place.
Thank you. We go through the board and ask for comments, questions. Peter?
I would just say thank you for your responsiveness to our concerns, and I think the plans as revised look great.
Thank you.
Lisa?
I'll second that. Thank you so much. It looks like there's 3 feet, 3 inches now along the whole entire property for a setback, so thank you so much.
Patrick?
Yeah, that's what we talked about, so I have no problem with it.
Great. Ann?
Yes, it looks great.
Great, thank you. And I agree. Thank you for making those changes. I think your neighbor's going to be happy too. So,
Excellent.
with that being said, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to be heard on this matter? Sir, if you could stand up, introduce yourself, name and address would be great.
My name's Michael, 33 Smith Road. I just want to know about, like, the wall in the back of, like, is there a place I can get a copy of the plans, just so I could see it?
You sure can.
Okay.
Well, I'm
That's all.
also,
I just,
I
because,
can connect with you.
like, there's the way the house is met, the house ends here, and then there's, like, 20 feet, and there's a wall. And I just want to know, can the house go all the way to the end of that wall, or does it have to, like, stay back? Because the way the plans looked before was the walk out from the basement right to the lake. And I was just wondering for my view and stuff, that's all.
Ms. McAllister?
Well, I might actually ask the applicant to speak to, I'm not entirely sure what the question is. I guess maybe you could speak more to the elevations of the
I do.
structure.
But that actual back wall is going to be in the same place it is now. The back wall is not moving out at all.
Okay, so that wall's gonna be there and stuff like that. The house doesn't go to the end of the wall, that's all I wanted to know.
No.
All right, that's it.
It's not going any closer to the lake. It's staying where it is right there.
Okay, that's all I wanted. That was my issue.
You got it.
Am I good now?
You're good?
All right.
You good.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Be it as it is. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Move to close the public hearing?
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Can I get a motion, please?
Sure. So move to approve a special permit under Section 4B to reconstruct a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling at 29 Smith Road in the Residence B2 District for George LeConte of 276 Plantation Street, Worcester, Massachusetts.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wish they were all this easy.
Did you lose your job?
Next 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Dale Shotsky, 64 Barnard Street, Shrewsbury, Mass. For 2 special permits to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaws under Section 6, Table 1. Excuse. To use a portion of the dwelling for an in-law apartment and to use a portion of the dwelling as an in-home professional office on a single-family dwelling upon property located at 64 Barnard Street in the Resident B1 District. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 04, Plot 024000. Mr. Shotsky?
Good evening. It feels different to sit on this
Yeah.
side. It really does.
Former board meeting.
My name's Dale Shotsky. I live at 64, Barnard Street. I've been there since 1984. And I'm looking for 2 special permits so that I can be in compliance with existing conditions that already exist. Some time back, when my mom was unable to live on her own, she moved into my basement, which was suitable. It was designed or built when I bought the house. It already had a kitchen and bathroom. And I put my mother in there, and she's allows her to live independently. She's 91 years old and doing very well. She doesn't drive anymore. Myself, my wife, my sister, and another helper come and visit her. Somebody visits her every day to help her with housekeeping and meals and such. And that's the essence of that request. On the business, I have, the house was built with an addition that really was a family room. And some time ago, I started using it as an office. And frankly, years ago, I closed my downtown office for the auction company I have. I now have 2 auction companies, and I'm also a realtor. And I'd like to be able to use that facility in keeping with the bylaw as a professional office. I don't see any visitors. I don't have any guests. I don't do any transactions there. And there's no traffic.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. McAllister, would you like to add anything?
Just that the board will find in their packets both floor plans for the in-law apartment, the basement level, and then also floor plans showing the area of space occupied by the home office that is no greater than 25% of the floor area.
Okay. Board members, questions, comments? Peter?
None for me. I don't imagine that it'll generate any noise or nuisance or anything else that would affect.
It's real quiet. I mean,
So,
it's like a remote office, except it's not remote from someplace else.
yeah. So fine by me.
And it all looks good. Everything you submitted looks great. And being a former board member, you know that
I do.
you have to sunset it
Yes.
with you as the owner.
Of course.
Great.
Patrick?
I have no problem with it.
Ann?
Looks fine.
I agree. Looks great. Being that this is a public meeting, I would ask if there's anyone out in the audience that'd like to be heard in the matter. Can I get a motion to close public comments?
Move to close public meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Can I get a motion, please?
Sure. I move to approve a special permit under Section 4, Table 1, to use a portion of the dwelling as an in-home professional office at 64 Barnard Street in the Residence B1 District for Mr. Dale Shotsky. Should we do them at the same time? Okay. And also a special permit under Section 6, Table 1, Section 6, Table 1, to use a portion of the dwelling for an in-law apartment at the same address.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So moved. Thank you, Dale.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening. Next 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Jennifer and Peter Collins of 16 Spring Circle, Shrewsbury, Mass. for a special permit to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaws under Section 4B to construct a second story and other additions on a non-conforming single-family dwelling and lot upon property located at 16 Spring Circle in the Residence B1 District. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 17, Plot 058000. Applicant or his,
I am Tom O'Connor from TCI Construction, representing the homeowners from 16 Spring Circle. If I could just present this to the board as a list of names from the homeowners that they gave this afternoon, signatures from abutters and neighbors that they have reviewed the plans and were, accepting of those proposed plans.
would you like to tell us a little bit about what you're,
So they're looking to add a second floor to the, not enlarging the existing footprint, not making it any more non-conforming with the 2 bedrooms and a bath on the second floor. And then there are 2 other small additions coming off the first floor that will not make that any more non-conforming than it already is. So we're seeking a special permit to do that work.
okay? Ms. McAllister?
Just to call the board's attention to the front yard setback, which in the district is required to be 30 feet, and it is 27.9. So that's where the special permit for this addition is, and then the lot is also non-conforming, so the proposed additions are increasing that non-conformity.
Okay. Peter, any questions?
None from me. Again, I think the drawings look great, and it doesn't increase the nonconformity significantly. So, barring any particular opposition from the neighborhood, which doesn't look like there is any, looks good to me.
Lisa?
It also looks fine. We are introducing some new nonconformity, but I don't think it's detrimental. If there's anyone here to make public comment, I would be interested in hearing what they have to say, but a large number of abutters appear to have seen the plan, and they do not object to the proposal, so that's good.
Patrick?
No, yeah, a couple of houses on that street have already done the same thing, so, no, it looks good. No problems with that.
Ann?
I have no concerns.
Great. Nor do I. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone out there that would like to be heard on this matter? Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Move to close the public hearing?
Can I get a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Can I get a motion, please?
Sure. I move to approve a special permit under Section 4B to construct a second story and other additions on a non-conforming single-family dwelling and lot at 16 Spring Circle in the Residence B1 District for Jennifer and Peter Collins.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of McGovern Auto Group Corp. Services, DBA McGovern Collision, 777 Washington Street, Newton, Mass., for 2 variances and a special permit to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaws under Section 6, Table 1, Footnote 9, Section 6, Table 1, and Section 4B to alter and reconstruct a non-conforming structure, to operate a garage repair shop, to store unregistered vehicles on the lot, and to have a curb cut within 500 feet of a church upon property located at 420 Boston Turnpike in the Commercial Business District. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 33, Plot 079000.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and members of the board. For the record, you all know me, but my name is Richard Ricker, and I'm an attorney representing McGovern Auto Group and the corporation appellant before you tonight. I'm here with John Schirkenbach, who is the Vice President of Corporate Development for McGovern Auto Group and the various entities that are involved, and also Garrett Horsfall, who is from Kelly Engineering Group, who has done the engineering for this property. It's important for me to note that, as you know, I think, we already been before the selectmen, as is required, and asked for the very same things we're asking you for tonight, frankly. We asked for the ability to park inventory vehicles on this site, and as you can see, a very large site. And we also asked for the garage license. And earlier this month, they did grant all three of those requests. This property was recently purchased by McGovern Auto Group, and it's another example of the tremendous investment that McGovern has put into the town of Shrewsbury. I would suggest to you respectfully, this property is dated, as you know. We've been before you before on this property, not us together, but I have for other purposes in the past. It has seen better days. The buildings on the site are in really terrible shape. And this proposal basically revitalizes this whole site. It takes down a substantial portion of the buildings, some of which have basically been condemned. And it refurbishes the building, actually rebuilds a building which is furthest from the Route 9 entrance. The reason for these requests is, first of all, for the basically the collision center, which is, as you know, it's the same thing as a repair shop, and a repair shop requires a special permit in Shrewsbury, in the commercial business zone. And frankly, what we have here is a large repair shop that would be going here. It's the collision center, and it's the upfit center for McGovern's municipal automobile dealership. By upfit, I mean they would put, for instance, the lights and the amenities on municipal vehicles like police cars, fire vehicles, and things like that. So they fit those vehicles up in a facility like this. This allows them to service the dealerships, the BMW dealership, the Audi dealership in Shrewsbury, also the Autobahn in Westboro, the Buick GMC dealership in Westboro. Is it Buick? It's Buick, isn't it?
Yes.
And also the municipal dealership in Framingham. We hope also perhaps one or two other dealerships in the vicinity. I would suggest to you respectfully that the repair shop that you're going to see, and Garrett will get into the elevations and so forth, but I would suggest to you respectfully, this is a vast improvement to this property. It's getting rid of basically what some folks that have been, well, some people have determined in this town to be somewhat of a nuisance in terms of the buildings as they sat. Instead, we're putting in a state-of-the-art facility for this collision center and upfit center that I think, as Mr. McGovern would say, should make us all proud. Bottom line is that I think it's a great improvement. I don't think that, I would suggest to you respectfully that this is not going to generate any nuisance whatsoever. It's in terms of undue traffic, in terms of noise or anything else. All the work will be done inside the building. And as I say, it's a state-of-the-art facility. There are 461 parking spaces in this whole site. The pavement will all be refurbished and redone. And as you can see, that they're using a substantial portion of the lot for the various parking that I've just described to you. There would be parking for some repair vehicles there as they're waiting to be repaired, as is allowed under the bylaw. But there also would be parking there for the vehicles per the licensing requirements and per the licenses that they have for the BMW and Audi. There would be, they've been allowed by the selectmen, subject to your approval, to basically park some inventory vehicles there, excess vehicles there for the Audi dealership and the BMW dealership. So The center that we're talking about, it will employ approximately 60 employees. It's good wages. It brings skilled auto technicians and various support personnel to this site. As I say, it cleans up the facility tremendously. This is the second of the public type of hearings that we've come to. We still need to go to planning board, as you know. And that would deal with things such as the landscaping plans, lighting issues, which, as I'm sure you're aware, is all required to be dark sky compliant, angled down lighting. And so, subject hopefully to your approval, we would be moving on to those hearings before the planning board and also the Conservation Commission again as well. Let me just, the curb cut variance as well. Yeah, we're gonna talk about the variance in a second. So two of the special permits, there's two special permits. One is to basically reconstruct a non-conforming structure. That would be this structure that I've talked about, this new collision center, because there's a side yard setback issue. It's close to what is Industrial Drive. So that's the setback that we're talking about. This would continue that side yard setback because we are going to use some of the steel from the existing frame of the structure. So the structure will sit in the same place as the present one. And I would suggest also, relative to both of those special permits, I don't need to repeat myself, but just for the record, I would suggest that it's in keeping with the bylaw. It's not a derogation, and it's certainly it would not be a nuisance. Again, it's a vast cleanup of the site. With respect to the variances, there are two, although I wasn't sure whether I should be asking for 2 or 1 because we're talking about the same footnote, but it's 2 issues within footnote 9. That footnote says that there shall be no storage of motor vehicles, appliances, or equipment on the premises other than those in the process of repair or awaiting delivery or in an enclosed structure area. You know, I think, and I think you would agree with me, that particular provision is probably pointing towards a site that is only a small, somewhat repair facility on a single lot. Obviously not this size lot. You know, it's designed for smaller parcels, I think, which would only have a garage or a repair shop on them. In any event, I would suggest to you, this is a very large lot. It would be such a shame not to be able to use it for anything else if you were to consider this particular section of the bylaw very strictly. Then they couldn't, frankly, put anything there on this whole lot, other than the repair vehicles. That would truly be a shame and presents quite a hardship. And I would suggest that it is the unique size of the lot in that instance that is affecting this proposal and therefore constitutes the hardship. With respect to the second item, as you can see from the plans before you, there are 2 entrances and exits on this property. The main one I would suggest to you is on Route 9 Boston Turnpike. That happens to be within 500 feet of the church parking lot up on Industrial Drive. The parking lot on Industrial Drive does not open onto Route 9, but it opens onto Industrial Drive. But technically, that entrance to this overall site is within the 500 feet. Now, I suppose if you said no, and if we had to subdivide the property and put a subdivision road in there in order to do it, I suppose you could tell us that that's something that would be possible, but I would suggest to you that what we have here is a entrance that's been there historically. This has been a multi-use parcel for many, many years. The topography of this site, and Garrett will show you this on the plans, the topography of the site does present a hardship at that location, because if you look at that entrance, the site seems to rise up to that entrance, and Route 9 seems to dip down to it, and you have the two meet right where that entrance is, but everything along the sides there, or heading towards the side yards, drops off tremendously. I was over there today, and frankly, it's a 12-plus foot drop. The minute you get away from that entrance. So respectfully, I would suggest, again, that there's clearly a topographical hardship here, which would dictate that we would ask you for the variance for this particular entrance exit. I would also note that there are two on this site, but obviously the one on Route 9 is important, and it's important to the overall use of the site itself. With that, perhaps Garrett could go through the plans for you.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Garrett Horsfall with Kelly Engineering Group. So as Richard stated, this is a fairly large parcel. It's about 15.4 acres located at 420 Boston Turnpike within the commercial business zoning district. And so right now there are two curb cuts, one access via Route 9 and one off of Oak Street. The site is bordered by Route 9, Industrial Drive to the east, several abutters to the south, and Oak Street to the east as well, in the west. There are several resource areas around this property, Richard State, that will require review by conservation as well. They're primarily along the edges of the site. Our proposal will not increase any of the pavement edges on this site. We'll all be working with the previously paved areas throughout this site. As Richard did state, there is a section of the larger building that's existing non-conforming relative to the setback along Industrial Drive, which is 40 feet per the bylaw. At the closest point, it's actually about 23.4 feet on the existing building. It sort of tapers as you move towards the north to become, more non-conforming to the south and less non-conforming to the north. But we will be removing approximately about 105,000 square feet of this building, roughly at this darker ridge line, as well as this smaller building on the northwestern portion of the site. So as Richard did state, there are several topographical challenges associated with this existing curb cut. It's approximately 320 feet from the church property line to the curb cut within our site, which is at elevation 440 in Route 9. And on either side of the property, it rises to about 450. So there's about 10 to 12 feet of grade change along Route 9, and within the site itself, which does come up fairly quickly as you enter the site, and there's a steep slope. It's about 12 feet into the site, so there is we respectfully would request the variance for a topographical hardship at this location, given those constraints. So we'll move over to the proposed site plan here. So we would be keeping about 112,000 square feet footprint, as previously stated. Approximately everything north of that ridge line gets demolished. There'd be about 6,500 square foot of mezzanine. We have been coordinating back and forth with the building inspector regarding parking per zoning for this. After several iterations, we have determined that 127 parking stalls would be required per zoning. We are providing about 128 spaces here. I've denoted these in generally the blue lines throughout the site, and then the orange line would be where we have sort of designated the repair vehicles. We've strategically located them further away from Route 9. There will be landscaping and evergreens and street trees along Route 9, which I'll show in a landscaping plan shortly here. But in total, there would be 333 inventory spaces and 128 zoning spaces on this site for a total of 461 spaces. So we are working all within the existing paved limits throughout the site. There is extensive wooded buffer along the edges of the sites primarily to the south and west, as well as there's a fairly wooded area that rises uphill to the south and east as well. So just to go over the landscaping plan as well. So this would be a mixture of evergreens and street trees primarily along Route 9. We would add shrubbery throughout the site and obviously spruce up around the building where customers would be entering and employees would be entering the building. It would just be a mixture of parking lot shade trees, shrubbery, and several perennials. To this area to the north and east on the site, right now that would just be a vacant area on the site. McGovern has, not sure what their plans are for that section of the site, but right now our plan is to leave it as sort of a gravel area. Essentially, this is where the larger building footprint would be demolished and replaced, and we are providing fire access through the middle of the building. And then there's some fire access that we are providing at the rears of the building per the request of the fire department. This will just be emergency egress type doors, no vehicular access doors. All the vehicular access doors are located facing the existing parking lot today. And this would only just be egress doors. The fire department has requested just a 5-foot wide gravel access path along the back of here, which we're going to be coordinating with conservation as well for that work. So just go over the elevations as Richard did touch on as well. So this would be the rear of the facility. As you can see, there are no vehicular driving doors. This would be the front facade facing to the west towards Oak Street. Obviously, this would all be paneled siding, a lot more decorative than what's there today. It'd be brand new state-of-the-art building, and this would be the portion that would face Route 9. It wouldn't be as the brick and mortar as the back. It would have I believe some banding. The final architectural details obviously to be coordinated as these plans progress, but it would definitely spruce up what's there today on the site.
To say the least. I would say, if I could, that these elevations are substantially complete, but there would be, I think we could expect some minor changes to them, such as, if you've looked at them in your package, there's like a ring of glass around the top of, just below the band at the top. That has proven to be too challenging, and it'll probably be windows instead along that row. Just to bring it to your attention, in case I'm asked to come back here to amend it because of that. I hope not. So, I mean, that's basically our request in a nutshell.
Thank you. Ms. McAllister?
No, that was a very thorough presentation. I think I just wanted to share, I know our building inspector and zoning enforcement officer has asked the board to consider if the variances are granted by this board to put in the number that was approved, again, if the board is amenable to it, the number that was approved for storage of vehicles by the Board of Selectmen, just to reinforce that for enforcement purposes. So
Which is the 333.
it's the 333 for storage and/or repair. So the condition is suggested to read as that. And we can, at the time of the motion, again, if the board is amenable, we can go over it.
Okay.
And just to be clear, there's also 128 spaces as required per the zoning for the size of the building.
Correct. That is not part of the condition. It's simply that was approved by the
461, right. It's
Board of
461 total. It's 333 for storage.
333 is what we're focused on.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay,
And that's what we're requesting.
great. Peter, comments, questions?
Yeah, I think, I guess I'll sort of go from the top. I think it looks great in terms of altering and reconstructing the non-conforming structure. It's obviously going to be an improvement. I don't see any nuisance value to that. Same as to operating a garage or repair shop. It seems like that's in keeping with the land and the neighborhood. And as to the storage of unregistered vehicles on the lot, again, I think that's in keeping with what's there, and I agree with the hardship being that you have this very large lot that you would otherwise, I mean, what would you put there? An airport or something? I mean, it makes sense that you...
And you couldn't park cars for that.
Right, but so, it's sort of, I think it would be against the spirit of the bylaw to say that you can't, park brand-new cars in this already paved location, and that doesn't seem to take anything away from the community at all. And finally, as to the curb cut, I agree with the topography issue that it is a tricky location, especially with the slope that it's on. And I think I don't think that the zoning bylaw is getting at this kind of situation where the entrance to the church or the parcel is really pretty far removed from the curb cut that we're talking about. It's not like there's any danger of people being hit by cars or something, you know, as they're going into church because of this curb cut, which I think is really more what it's aimed at. So I think it checks all the boxes.
Lisa?
I have to agree with everything that was just stated. I am curious, and maybe this will come up in public comment. The point of egress out to Oak Street,
Yes.
so that, has there been any discussion on limiting turns out of that at all?
No, they haven't. Actually, that is a very important entrance and exit for the site because of the distance, the directional issues that the other entrance presents. So,
And I remember this coming up in the past as, when this property was a different use than what's being proposed, so.
yes, and I think that was an issue that was probably appropriately discussed at that time because of the number of individual drivers that were bringing various vehicles there
Correct.
from wherever.
Correct.
And the concern was that people would be perhaps driving up Beverly Hill Drive or driving up Howe
Sure.
Ave or something like that, missing this turn or whatever. I don't think you have the same kind of situation here. And I think that this is a very directed business. It's the people that are going to be going there are going there for this specific reason and not on a Sunday afternoon.
Yep, so thank you, I appreciate that, and I agree. I think it's a very different use, so.
And by the way, they will not be hours on Sunday. And the hours are, as we stated to the selectmen, the hours are 7:30 to 5:30 PM, Monday through Friday, and 7:30 to 4 PM on Saturday.
Excellent, thank you.
Patrick?
Yep, back to that entrance there on Oak Street.
Yes.
You know, that's right before the light, and right now that road is beat to hell. So I don't think people use it. I'd be afraid that once all done over, that would be quite a cut through to Route 9.
Well, I don't think it has ever been that.
Because it's in horrible condition.
Well, yeah, but honestly, it hasn't always been that way. I remember when the pavement was in better shape over there, and I don't recall, I don't recall that ever happening.
Yeah.
I think, as you will note, that there is a no trespassing sign there now. I think that there will be signage that probably says entrance only for this property.
I think that would be important.
Yeah, so, and that kind of sign is easily placed, and I agree with you. It's in terrible shape now, and
Yeah.
I drove it today, as a matter of fact. And,
Yeah.
so I don't think there'd be any problem with this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing too is that it's a wide open space right now, so it's kind of attractive to cut through, right? In the future, it won't be. It'll be parking lot, it'll be striped, there'll be a lot of vehicles there. There'll be curbing in place. It won't be a quick cut through. Quite honestly, you might take more time navigating down through the parking lot, down the aisles and back out.
Yeah, actually, if you look
You might not save any time,
if you
quite
look at
honestly, so I don't think it's gonna be that attractive.
If you want to put that plan up again.
With the parking, yep.
If you look at that plan, you can see the rows of parking that we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
So you'd have to,
Pretty clear shot to me.
Well, that one is 100 car, and there's a couple hundred cars there. I don't know. I wouldn't think there
No,
would be.
yeah.
Anybody listening, do not use
Empty,
that.
an empty parking lot is a bit different than one filled with
Exactly.
cars,
Patrick's
so,
gonna do the
yes.
handbrake turn.
We're hoping it's not gonna be empty. Trust us.
Right.
Right,
You know,
I mean, there's
Exactly.
333
That's
cars
right.
parked there, so.
You're supposed to drive slow in a parking lot filled with cars.
and you're going to have, activity there. You're going to have
Yes.
people bringing in repair vehicles, trucks will be bringing in vehicles. There's going to be activity there.
Yeah, I think,
But we don't have a problem with signage. I mean,
yeah, I think that would be an important thing, a sign there.
Ann, questions, comments?
No, I think we've covered everything I have.
Great, thank you. I'm not gonna over-comment on anything, just say thank you for improving this site. It really was needed, so, it's a vast improvement.
Thank you.
Being that this is a public hearing, I would ask if there's anyone in the audience that would like to be heard on this matter. Please step up to the microphone. If you could identify your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Chris Besaw. I live at 165 Oak Street. My property is actually the one that abuts the cut-through up to Oak Street. So we just have a question for Alicia Drive. Are you planning to widen that at all, or just leave it the same size?
I'm not, it's Alicia.
What's Alicia Drive?
That's the cut-through up to Oak Street. That's the name of that
That's the
road.
driveway?
That's the, yeah, it's called Alicia Drive.
There you go.
No,
Didn't know that.
It's
no
how we've
plans to
always done it.
widen, but we certainly are gonna improve the pavement, because the pavement is basically falling apart right now.
Well,
It's
no kidding.
barely drivable now.
But
so
you're not going to be widening it?
no
widening.
plans,
No, there's no reason to.
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else in the audience? Okay, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Move to close the public hearing?
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Can I get a motion?
Good luck.
So should we vote on this in pieces, or should we do it sort of all at once?
Whatever's easier for you.
Doesn't matter.
Do you want to, you have,
Well, I've got it here on the thing, yeah.
okay, great.
So,
I would do three separate.
The only thing is with the garage and repair shop and then the storage of unregistered vehicles, to just have that number of 333
Yeah.
somewhere
Yes.
in your motion.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
have it identified as either or, either use for storage of vehicles or for the repair. Is that clear?
no.
We do have a po- I think that the number, the 333 and how that's divided has become a point of concern.
Right.
All right, I'll take a run at it, and if we'll see how it goes.
All right, there we go.
So I move to approve, firstly, a special permit under section 6B to alter and reconstruct a non-conforming structure, a special permit under section 6, table 1, to operate a garage / repair shop, and 2 variances under section 6, table 1, footnote 9, 2 and 3, to store 333 unregistered vehicles on the lot, and to have a curb cut within 500 feet of a church at 420 Boston Turnpike in the Commercial Business District from McGovern Auto Group Corporation Services.
Madam Chair, one amendment. It would be the 333 storage spaces as stated will also be, it's an and/or for the garage and repair use.
Oh, I see.
It's a total storage
So it's
for repair and inventory.
I see.
So perhaps an amendment for 333 vehicles for storage and/or repair use on the lot.
Okay. What she said.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah,
I
that's fine.
second.
Okay.
There we go. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
You
That was-
Make sure you get all the vote sheets. There should be 3.
got 3,
Three?
okay,
Okay.
great. All right.
All set?
All good.
Yes, you're all set.
All set?
Thank you very much.
Very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, thank you, great presentation.
Thank you.
Here, I'll let you do it. So I don't hold things
The
up.
333 in here.
Yeah. My apologies. That was a last minute
That's
one.
okay. It's okay. Okay. All right, next on the agenda is to hear the appeal of St. John's High School of Worcester County, Inc., 378 Main Street, Shrewsbury, Mass., for a variance to the Town of zoning bylaws under Section 7E5B to install a digital message board which changes messages multiple times within a 24-hour period upon property located at 378 Main Street in the Residence A District. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 21, Plot 100000. Can the applicant please state your name for the record and let us know what you plan on doing?
Chris Luoto, Chief Financial Officer. Eric Ring, Director of Buildings and Grounds. Thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate it. Just to provide a little bit of context, the senior class at the school, class of 2022, would like to create a class gift to the school, the inaugural class gift, first one of its kind to the school. And they came up with the idea of a message board for the school, which I think is wonderful. The proposed message board would replace the existing, there's basically a 2x4, 4x8 plywood structure on the middle island in front of our gymnasium. It's kind of run down and unsightly. I think installing the message board would better represent St. John's and the town of Shrewsbury as well. The school would like to install the digital message board as shown on the submitted plans. We're requesting the ability to change that message not more than 5 times in a 24-hour period. The purpose of the message board would be to provide important updates to both our families at the school, faculty, and the public in general. Limiting the ability of the display to only one message or image per day would defeat kind of the intent and purpose of having the message board. With many events on campus, both public and private, having the ability to post important reminders and announcements would be a valuable asset to St. John's. Granting the variance as well, I feel, would benefit the public. The school intends to program the message board to receive and display FEMA alerts, weather alerts, amber alerts. It operates on a cell signal, and we can program that cell signal to interrupt whatever's on the board and display it publicly. I think in particular that's would be beneficial not only to the school but the town, being right on Main Street with the amount of traffic and exposure that would have. It would be a way to alert the public. Just to avoid distractions on Main Street, all images will be stationary with no scrolling or animated graphics. The proposed Daktronics message board will be programmed to automatically dim at night down to 4% brightness, which will reduce the brightness and glare at night. The proposed location and sign orientation are perpendicular to Main Street, minimizing disruptions to adjacent neighbors. I just would like to say that St. John's has always strived to be a good neighbor and support our community, and we would ask for your support and grant the variance as requested.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. McAllister?
I don't think I have anything to add at the moment, but I'm happy to help guide the board if any questions come up.
Thank you. Peter?
Sure. So, as you know, in order to grant a variance, the board has to find that there is a hardship. The statute defines hardship as something to do with the shape, soil, topography of the land, or the properties of existing structures that are unique to the parcel, and that granting such a variance would not derogate from the purposes of the bylaw. I honestly don't see a hardship here. And I do see ways in which allowing a digital sign, a lit sign, that sort of scrolls, even if it is only a few times during the day, would derogate from the purpose of the bylaw. I think the point is this is a relatively residential area, and you've got a lit sign, you know, that has colors on it and is changing, and it just sort of, I think the point of this limitation is to keep from having kind of busy, bright signage like that in places where people are in their homes and that sort of thing. And in terms of the ability to communicate with the student body or with parents. I mean, there are many, many ways to do that that don't involve a large electronic sign. You have the kids there all day, obviously. There's email, there are websites, there are cell phone alerts that people are signed up for. So I guess I sort of balancing the equities here, one, I don't see sort of a hardship to begin with, and two, I don't see a sort of pressing need on the part of the school to have this such that it would override the public interest in not having it. So I say that sort of by way of a comment and also a question, and I'd be interested in hearing your response, and I have an open mind, of course.
Well, we could put up the digital sign and have it not change at all throughout the day. And having the ability to change our message more than once per day, it limits, our ability and use of that structure. And I think, given the fact that it is in a residential neighborhood, we are trying to be accommodating and limit the number of messages, as well as the dimming at night, will reduce disruptions to the neighbors.
Okay. You see what I mean, though, in terms of the hardship there would be that you'd like to build a digital sign that changes and the rules say you can't. I mean, that's the hardship. That's always the hardship, right? You
It is.
do something and the rules say you can't.
Right.
It has to be something sort of more than that, I think, typically, to get over that. And so it's, I'm not like personally anti-sign or anything. It's just that there's sort of a statutory threshold that we have to find that we've reached in order to say the rules apply to everyone else except for you. And it's not clear to me that threshold is reached here. Although I'd be interested in hearing what the community has to say and anything else that you have to say. Again, approaching this with an open mind. But so far, I'm not sure I understand it.
So I completely agree. Oh, sorry.
I don't want to interrupt. I do just want to go through the chair. I do know that the applicant, in applying for this variance, I know I had some discussions where a hardship may have been discussed. So I just want to prompt the applicant if you do want to go into that. I don't want to lead the applicant, but I do know that we have discussed that. So just want to make sure you're understanding Mr. Mulcahy here, that a variance is granted for hardship for soil, shape, size of the lot, some kind of unique condition. And I guess I just want to allow the applicant to share if
Yes, we did have discussion, and I have spoken with Ms. Sheehan as well, and I guess I'm unclear as to how to present a hardship in that it does state the lot, et cetera, or otherwise, and I'm just unclear. Perhaps I'm underprepared for my presentation.
Fair? Okay. Let's talk about that. Lisa, comments?
I completely agree with everything my colleague stated. I do appreciate the efforts that you're making to make the sign less distracting. You mentioned dimming it later, and then it will present static images that aren't moving or animated, so I appreciate that. But I usually have a problem with these types of signs because I do find them very distracting. As you're driving by them, you're looking to see what the next one's going to say, and you're not keeping your eye on the road. So I too would want to be motivated by a hardship, and I do not see one, and you haven't presented one to us. I was very curious to know what you think your audience is. So you mentioned the community and, of course, everyone that goes to St. John's. And I love the idea that the student, I believe, presented. But I'm wondering if a better place for something like this is down by the field and not near the road. And your existing sign just be something that is completely static at all times. So those are my thoughts. And at this time, I am leaning toward not approving something like this, so I need to hear more to sway my decision.
So basically, what is in question is our ability to change messages. We can install the sign, it has to be static and cannot change messages throughout the day. Is that my understanding?
That is correct. So just so the board is aware, the only thing in question here is the changing more than once. They could have a bright, colorful sign lit up that stays in place all day.
Within the usual zoning rules of how bright and lit up and
Yeah.
those
Correct.
things, yeah.
Correct.
They're asking for a variance, however.
They're asking for a variance from the section of the bylaw that says that all signage must be
Can't be moving.
right continuously in place, something like that to that effect. So that's the case here. I guess I would say that I know the applicant and I did discuss a little bit about the size of the lot as a unique condition. So that's what I was trying to get at earlier. I apologize.
I'd have a hard time
Sometimes
with
it's-
that.
So,
Sorry.
but I do
I'd have a
know
hard
that
time with that one.
that was something that was discussed, just to
Okay.
make that clear.
Yeah. And I don't
but-
believe size is unfortunately one of the statutory factors. It's
No.
shape, soil, topography. But I think, even if, I think we could consider size, I guess.
It is size.
Well,
Size.
even considering size, I guess I would say it's not clear to me how the ability to
not
change a
small.
sign relates to the size of the lot. If the sign could be placed, if it's truly meant to provide information to students, it doesn't even need to be anywhere near the road. It could be by the front entrance to the school.
Yes.
I think moving it in a remote spot, it's a matter of getting electricity to it, controlling it, and the expense related to that.
So before we move on to the next member, I did ask, who is the intended audience? And it would be interesting to know, are 80% of your messages geared towards your students? Or are 80% of the messages you want to show geared towards people driving by? And that, you don't have to answer that, but I would.
I wouldn't say 80% either way. We host numerous events on campus, whether it's our theater, basketball games, et cetera, that are open to the public. And we also host Pioneer Fest every year down on Pioneer Field, which is open to the public. We welcome the public, families to come down, enjoy the games, et cetera. And it would be a good way to promote that and invite the public into our campus. It is a beautiful campus. And to have that ability to get that message out, it would be a great tool to have.
Thank you for that. To my colleague's point, there are other media outlets where you can get those messages out. We also have places in town where you can place banners that you could have a reusable banner for the events that you have every year. Anyway, I'm just suggesting other things because I'm not, again, seeing a hardship, so it's very hard for me to
Okay.
approve without a hardship. So I'm suggesting other
No,
ways.
and it would just be a matter of installing it and have it one message. It doesn't move, it doesn't change, it's still lit, and
Perhaps, but my
That's-
colleagues might think otherwise.
Patrick, questions, comments?
I agree with Peter on everything he said. He said it well. But I'd also be very curious to hear what the public has to say, because I believe that there are people here for this.
Okay. Ann?
So I'm wondering, since St. John's is a religious institution and an educational institution, is the board's ability to apply the zoning bylaw limited by those factors?
So, Rowan, can you address that, please?
Yes, I can. So, yes, I'll make the board aware, if they aren't already, that our zoning enforcement officer and building inspector has reviewed the plans under Article 3, Chapter 40A of the Massachusetts General Bylaw, which is commonly known as the Dover Amendment, which gives religious institutions and schools basically a second measure of meeting the zoning, or I should say, not meeting the zoning requirements based on a determination of a reasonable application of those. So our zoning enforcement officer has applied that and found that the size and scale and location of the proposed sign is reasonable. It was her determination, however, that the specific changing of the signs more than once, again, in this 24-hour period, it was outside of her comfort or ability to apply that section. So she's asked the board to make a determination as it relates to the proposed sign.
So another way of saying that is the Dover amendment protects this particular appellant for the size and location of the sign, but not necessarily the motion of the sign.
That's correct. If the board would like to engage with town council, we could go there. I'm basically that, I would say that was the determination of the zoning enforcement officer at that time.
I would agree.
Right. Anything else, Ann?
No, thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. That protection under the Dover Amendment's important. Yeah, I'm very curious to hear the public comments. I see it a little bit differently. So by right, you have the ability to install the sign and keep it one message over a 24-hour period. And you're in front of us so that you can change that message up to 5 times a day. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
Okay. The message board that you'll be proposing does dim, so the brightness gets dimmed considerably at night, fair?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yep, down to 4% based on ambient light.
Okay. I do think size is a consideration in a variance of size of the lot, and I would be curious, and it didn't occur to me until Lisa mentioned it, and I understand that you've probably given a lot of thought to where this board is proposed, but one of the considerations might be to move it down the hill to the bottom where the hill gets a little bit more flat over where your playing fields are.
Again, it's getting electricity to it. Vandalism would be a concern as well. Not being proximate to campus. We do have security cameras on campus. It's elevated up on the hill, behind the stone wall, which the stone wall is probably 2.5 feet tall on our side. From sidewalk to top of stone wall has to be 4.5 feet anyways in elevation. And, we currently have the wooden structure there now that's been there. I put that up temporarily, I use hand quotes, probably 8 or 9 years ago. And it just doesn't, I don't think it reflects well on the school to have kind of this rinky-dink looking, sign. Another option, we would be willing, I think, to turn the sign off at night. From 10 o'clock at night, we turn it off. If that would help, get, the ability and flexibility of the sign. There's no reason we can't do a schedule on it through the programming and shut it off at 10 o'clock at night and have it come on at 6 in the morning. It's not going to be scrolling messages throughout the day. It would be more like announcements, bulletin style, or we would have one, the play coming up, and that would be the primary message for the day.
And am I right in looking at the drawing that it's brick on the bottom? So it's going to mimic the look and integrity of the gym, I assume?
Yes, that's kind of with the sandstone color. That was the intent of the sign.
And it's perpendicular to the street?
Correct, square.
So you're going to see it east to west as you're driving?
Correct.
That's correct? Okay.
Yep. We did have Daktronics come out with their display trailer, and they had like 3 or 4 different size signs, and we kind of drove up the hill, down the hill, walked up the hill and down the hill with various signs. The original one was much bigger than this one, and we scaled it down, knowing that there would be some concerns. Again, trying to be a good neighbor and a good citizen of the town.
It looks like the viewing area, 38 by 94, does that sound, that's what I'm showing.
I believe it's 16.5 square feet per side, if I remember correctly.
Okay. Okay, I don't want to belabor points that the public might have some commentary on, so,
Can I make one more comment?
sure.
So I'd love to make one more comment. Thank you for that. As we hear public comment, I think it'd be very interesting to hear about a possible change to the proposal. We've heard the appellant mention having the sign completely off for some period of time. And the proposal is to change the message on the sign 5 times in a 24-hour period. But what I'm hearing you say is maybe it would be 5 times in a 12-hour period, perhaps? Or maybe even less times in a 12-hour period. I will be very interested to hear public comment on what people have issue with. Is it the amount of times that the message changes? Is it the lighting? Things like that. Because we could change things a little bit, come to a compromise.
That would be helpful.
Okay?
Okay. Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in our audience that wishes to be heard on this?
I would appreciate it.
Okay, well, he spoke first, but you look like you were here longer, so if you'd like to step up to the microphone and your name and address would be helpful.
I'm Bob Claflin. I live at 303 Main Street. I'm at the foot of the hill. There's a number of issues I see that, first of all, I think the sign, any sign, would be unsafe. No matter what size it is, if it was small, it'd be harder to see. If it was large, it'd take more attention away from it, driving. The speed limit is 45 miles an hour downhill. There's a curve. There's also 2 streets across the street from the high school. And the accidents up there, pretty high. I don't know what the count is, but I know, of course, of a year, there's a lot of them. Let's see. The coming in and out of streets across the way is bad enough as it is, and I know a sign would take your attention of the sign and the cars coming out. I think it would make it even worse. As far as moving the sign down the hill toward the school ball fields, which is down where I am, there's already too many accidents down there coming out of the parking lot. It's constant. And further down, at my driveway, I'm between Westbrook Crossing and Shrewsbury Crossing, and we have enough accidents there because of the speed limit and the light. As you go down around the corner, there's a light, and they back up. There's a lot of accidents down there. I'd like to know, I don't know what the number is, but I know I have the scanner on a lot anyway, and I hear where they are. So I'm very much opposed to any kind of a sign, whether it changes a number of times a day or once a day. They mentioned they could shut it off at 10 o'clock at night. Well, there's no traffic at 10 o'clock at night, so I don't think that'd be any helpful doing that. As far as neighbors, I wouldn't want it across the street from my house if I was living there. Looking at that changing and flashing all night, it does, it would be, I would think it would be very distracting. But that's my thoughts, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Sir?
California, 401 Main Street. As it happens, I probably have tenure in the area. It comes with age. And I would like to start off with a question. Is there any audio affiliated with this project?
No, sir.
Thank you for that info. I was glad to hear reference to safety, because that was a main thing in what I wanted to mention. We have cars going by reading newspapers, reading telephones, doing whatever, and there's one more thing that's going to be provided now that, in my opinion, would interfere with safety. I have a suggestion, and you can call it an SOS. Change your whole plan, go SOS, and by that I mean scholarship over sign. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fournier. Anyone else? Please, sir.
Hi, Ed Bolter, 12 Westview Ave. So we're one of those streets that's right across from one of the major entrances to the school. We love the school, they're a great neighbor. But as this gentleman alluded to, it's getting really challenging as a resident of Westview to come out and get onto Main Street, particularly if I want to take a left, right? So we've got a kind of a blind curve to the left, and then we've got that hill that drops down pretty precipitously. So just, trying to navigate that as a challenge. At school start and let out time, it gets really congested down there. It's hard, you're now having to look, multiple ways just to make sure it's safe to get onto Main Street. So my question is, has a public safety assessment been made with this proposal? Because, we have, in last calendar year, we've witnessed a lot of accidents around the school because it does get so busy there, right? So adding another distraction is something that, I'm concerned about because having people coming 40-ish or more miles an hour, particularly from that left, and if they're distracted by, whatever the message may be, it's just one more hazard that we have to navigate in order to, go about our day. So I would love to hear if there's been a public safety assessment done with this proposal. Okay.
Would you like to address that?
There has not, sir.
Okay. I think there should be. Thanks.
Thank you. Please.
I've written this. Hi, my name's Jennifer Smith. I live at 391 Main Street. We've lived there, my family, for the last 9 years. We are directly across from that signage. We've enjoyed our time at this residence and have found that the St. John's community is a great place for boys to become young men. Our son attended and graduated from St. John's in 2017. It was a pleasure to have him so close to the school. There are many conveniences of being able to have him walk across the street for class, sports, and extracurricular activities. It was also a great challenge each and every time he had to cross Main Street, as that area is treacherous. This area has a blind curve, as you've already heard from others, that is impacted by the rising and setting sun glare during the commute hours. Cars frequently speed in both directions and do not yield to the pedestrians stopped, the school buses stopped, or turning vehicles. Many cars are already distracted with their technology in their cars, and additionally, during this morning and evening commutes, there are many novice drivers in the area due to both St. John's and Shrewsbury High School. Per town bylaw, the lighted sign is allowed there as long as there are no moving parts, such as changing messages and flashing lights. Hence, no additional distractions to vehicles or neighborhoods from a standard stationary sign, which they currently have a standard stationary sign. We feel that this lighted digital sign will cause a nuisance to the neighbors and to the passing traffic in the way of causing distraction for drivers and illuminating the area beyond the existing lights. Currently, St. John's has that static sign I mentioned. They use it to announce events. Additionally, the school uses multiple communication platforms such as email, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc., along with their website, the ability to text their community, and families know of the events that are going on at the school at all times. While our son attended St. John's, we had no problems with the communication and knowing when sporting events, tests, holidays, and such were going on. The school did a wonderful job at communicating this with the St. John's community. I see no hardship why this sign needs to St. John's for this sign. The ground is level. There's no problem there. St. John's students, parents, and families have always been well informed of knowing what events are happening at the school. Nor do I see how a lighted digital sign could benefit the community in this area as more people travel Route 9 than this section of Main Street. Only a small portion of the town residents in this section of Main Street who live there are the ones that are traveling, or those that are just traveling to pass through town. And even the percentage of overall drivers drops to single-digit percentage between the hours of 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. If St. John's intends to use the sign for severe weather, amber, or FEMA alerts, they have other well-entrenched communication platforms in place already that are more expedient. And having this then change for those alerts would jeopardize their variance of being able to have messages change more than 5 in a 24-hour period. The digital sign proposed will cause more distractions to drivers in this street in an area that's already heavily congested and where there have been numerous accidents over the past few years. 2 most recently occurred just near this proposed location, where there are many interchanges in the road and have involved young, inexperienced drivers. Also, the light being emitted from the Detronics message board will be bright enough to illuminate the road at night and the surrounding area and cause a disturbance to the adjacent properties, even with it set perpendicular to the road and at 4% dim. Again, we are residents who enjoy the St. John's community, but as neighbors, we feel it is in poor judgment to install a lighted digital message board in this location due to public safety of the drivers, nuisance by the lighted emissions, and distraction to drivers. This message board will not improve the neighborhood and mostly will not benefit the community of Shrewsbury to have this sign in this location. We ask that this message board not to be installed as a changing light board. A few questions that we have are, what does the statement, in quotes, ability to change the displayed message to no more than 5 individual messages in a 24-hour period mean? Does this mean the message will remain static for no less than 4 hours and 48 minutes before changing? Or what is the frequency of the message changing? Also, how will this message board impact the arrival and dismissal of traffic? Who is the general audience that they're trying to reach? Because when the message board is on, students, staff, and the St. John's community will be in class and not seeing the message board. Lastly, if the signage is approved, we do ask that the message board be turned off during the night, during the hours of 9 p.m. and 5 a.m., 7 days per week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Vono, one of my other neighbors on Westview Ave, he did submit a letter to you.
Yep, we're aware.
And you have that, so, okay, thank
Aware
you.
of that. Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? Sir?
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Lula Rose. I live at 5 Dalton Drive in Westbrook Crossing. Public safety is my main concern, and the fact that during the morning hours of incoming traffic to St. John's and the afternoon hours exiting, the vehicles that are on Main Street, for the most part, 80% of them are partially on the travel way to begin with. That in itself is a safety concern that I see, having been prior public safety. The other thing of it is the fact that you're going to have a distraction with the vehicles coming east and west, adding to the fact that you're going to have a line of traffic that backs up coming in on both morning and afternoon from 290 all the way to the school. And again, I'll revert back to the gentleman that spoke first. I don't see the hardship at all. And I'm concerned about public safety and the fact that, as you know, Westbrook Crossing is a 55 and over community, and it's hard enough to get out of there to begin with. So I'm just concerned with the distraction. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
do just want to remind you that if you do close the public hearing, we wouldn't be able to hear from the applicant any
Oh, thank
further
you.
to discuss any of
Good
the.
point. Would you like to continue questions, comments?
I guess I have just one. So I'm coming back to the idea of changing it 5 times in a 24-hour period. You presumably wouldn't be changing it during the night, right?
No, it would be static, 99% of the time.
Right.
It
So
would be, a major upcoming event. It could be, a basketball game coming up, that type of stuff, football.
But I guess my point is, so as someone mentioned it, it's really more that it would be 5 times in a 12-hour period. If you're going to put it down to 4% overnight, you're not going to waste any of your 5 changes during that time, right?
Right, and originally we were gonna ask for 2 to 3.
Yeah.
And, we figured 5, would be a max number.
But so I was just hearing the community talk, just sort of mulling it over my head. So what it really means is that if it's really 5 changes in 12 hours, then you're talking about it changing on average up to every 2.5 hours, basically. But
It's not gonna be rapid fire message after message
Right.
after message.
But as a resident pointed out, if the idea is to have the student body read the messages, for example, they're in the building most of the day.
Correct.
So presumably most of the changes would be around the time when people are coming and going from the school to get the messages out there. And that's also the time when the public safety issue is sort of the strongest, I guess, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
the concern.
So that's
Which I
that's sort of where
appreciate.
I'm stuck, I guess. So that's all I had.
Yeah, I had the same issue on the cadence of the messages. I would expect you would want to show all those 5 and rotate them when people are being dropped off or picked up to get your message across, and that is when that would be most distracting and become a safety issue. And then I just had questions on how do you even determine that cadence and program it, and what are your thoughts there? Is it one message every 4 hours or what? But I think that it's probably
It
moot.
could be no message for 4 days. It could be the
Sure.
same message for 4 days, static, and not change at all.
Mm-hmm.
We've never had the opportunity to have this tool available.
Mm-hmm.
It's all done, wirelessly. We have a director of communications who would be in charge of it. And she would, all requests would get filtered through her, and in conjunction with administration, what messages go out to the public.
Understood. So if we were to entertain this, then we could write a condition in a way that we would restrict you to changing your message no more than 3 times in a 12-hour period, and each of those messages must remain for a minimum of 4 hours, something like that, if we were to do this, to try to limit the distraction.
I'm sure the school would be open to, just that. The 9 o'clock to 5 is fine. And then if it's 3 messages, no more than 3 in a 12-hour period. And if there's a time limit between changing that message, we would be amenable to that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just add, I think certainly if we have the ability to change it twice per day, if there's an event going on in the evening, it certainly may help with traffic flow, whether it's, directions to park in the front or in the back, or just the ability to promote that evening's event. If we were able to, have 2 static signs, one in the morning, one in the evening, I think that would work. We'd be certainly agreeable to that.
Okay.
I just got a couple of things. Were you aware of how the neighbors felt about this sign? Like, it doesn't seem very...
The only one I was aware of was the woman from 391 Main Street. When we were there with the sample trailer, she did come running across the street and was somewhat confrontational about it. And literally, it was on a trailer as a temporary thing, just to see what it would look like. And apparently, she did leave a message with the building department a day or two after that.
Maybe it'd be a good idea once in a while, put on there like drive slow or something.
We could do that too. It would be nice. You know, we did try to get sidewalks put in as part of the Main Street renovation, and we weren't able to do that. You know, and that was our concern, was the pedestrian traffic. It was great that we got the sidewalks on both sides, but traversing for students on Westview, et cetera, to cross the road, we weren't able to convince the state to put in additional crosswalks with signage to get people to slow down. It would be nice if it was 35 or 40 through there in a perfect world. And that was another one of our concerns, the hearings during the Main Street renovation, was getting people to slow down. But we could certainly, you know, we'd be willing to work with the town and come up with something that everybody is, you know, agreeable to.
Ann, do you have any more comments?
No, thank you.
So a couple comments that I have. I actually live in the neighborhood as well, and I see it a little bit differently. I'm actually always surprised that I can get out of, I live on Westwood, the top of the hill, and I'm always pleasantly surprised by how courteous the people are to let me out and turn left out of my street. And, you know, we've lived there for 20-plus years, and that never seems to be an issue. But I do understand the concern. Cars get going down Main Street, and this is way off topic, but just as a general safety concern, I think the speed limit is really something that we can't control right here at this meeting, but I think it's something that we might want to think about just in terms of public safety, because I think cars get going down the hill and they just get going. And,
Oh, yeah.
you know, it's
45 becomes 55.
45 becomes 65. And, you know, that's, I think, part of what we're dealing with. I would comment, I think St. John's is a very good neighbor, and I would always give you a lot of credit for maintaining your buildings at such a high level and pleasing on the eye. You've done a wonderful job with your fields. So from that perspective, you know, I personally want to work with you to give you something that the class of 2022 really has come up with as an idea. I think that the number, I just want to be clear that by right, that sign can go up. So that's not even in question. It's just a matter of how often that sign message is going to change. And I do think that 5 number does seem like a lot to me, especially given the amount of time that we are dealing with. So I could wrap my mind around, and I do think that the lot size is part of what the relief would be on the variance. So I could imagine reducing the number from 5 to 3 would make me feel more comfortable. And I think that the safety issues that we're hearing a lot about, while they're not directly related to the installation of a sign, I think that they're important things that we hear about in public meetings, and your students certainly need to be, you know, continually reinforced, and their parents. The parent pickup line is, you know, way down the street. Again, off topic, but just wanted to comment on that.
Yep.
I think that the sign itself looks aesthetically pleasing, and I thank you for that. So
I agree with a lot of what you have said. I still struggle with the hardship, so I'd love to hear from Peter on that one. I'd throw this out there and see if you'd be amenable to this, that between the hours of 7 and 3 p.m., and we can go back and forth on this, that only 2 messages can be shown during those times. I'm not sure what to do about the cadence. You know, I don't want this 2 messages to keep rotating and switching.
I don't
So
think
we have to establish that, a message in the morning, a message in the afternoon, but those are the hours, and that you turn this off after 4 PM. And we can debate those times. Is it 6 PM? Is it 8 PM?
As far as turning the sign off.
Yes, you're proposing you're dimming it, but what about turning it off?
I would
This-
be
I don't know
more
over here.
amenable to 9 o'clock at night, turning it off.
Okay,
I think that would, 9 to 5 in the morning,
9 to 5?
yeah, it would be completely off,
9 PM to 5 AM is what your recommendation is.
correct. And that would be 7 days a week.
5.
And if we limit 2 messages, 7 to 3, with a third message in the evening, that would help out for some of the nighttime events.
I see.
Whether that's directional parking, welcome to St. John's, that type of messaging to people coming on campus.
I do see, if we were to do this, being able to display messages directing people safely, much more safely than they are today. I do see that as a benefit. But again, I'm back to hardship. I'm struggling.
Yeah, and again, for what it's worth, existing structures, soil, topography, shape, these are the things that we can consider. If we were to consider size, I think it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me because the hardship has to relate to the thing. So I don't see any relation whatsoever between the size of the parcel and whether or not the sign can change. I think, and that would just mean that we just don't have the power as a board to do it. If we don't find that there's a hardship, we just don't have the power to grant a variance. It's not within our power as a board, whether or not we think a sign would be nice for St. John's or nice for the kids who raise the money. These are all laudable things. It's just, if we don't find a hardship, we can't grant a variance. And so I think where I'm sort of landing is it doesn't sound to me like under the existing rules that you couldn't have an electronic sign that just had a different message every day, right? You turn it off at night.
Yeah.
With one message, you turn it on in the morning, has a different message. Spring musicals tonight, parking up on the left or whatever, and that's the message that's on all day. Then you shut it off at night. The next day, football game tonight down the hill.
I guess the school is trying to work with the town as well as our neighbors.
Yeah.
And come to a compromise that everyone could live with.
And so I guess that's sort of what I'm saying is I think, it's not clear to me that we have a hardship. I think it's clear that the neighbors are not thrilled about this, and I think they've got some good points about public safety, especially if we're going to be changing the sign during a time when a lot of 16-and-a-half-year-olds or 17-year-olds are leaving school, coming and going. There's lots of cars. It's, I live in the area also. It can be kind of a madhouse in the afternoon, not through the fault of anybody. It's just the nature of the beast. It's school letting out. And having a sign that's toggling during that time only just adds to the distractions that are available. Whereas by right, you could build a sign where the message changes every day, and then the neighbors are happy because they don't have 4 or 5 different things flashing towards their houses during the course of a day, and it doesn't change, so the drivers aren't any more distracted by it than they would be by the banners that you put up anyway. And we don't have to find a variance where it doesn't appear or a hardship where it doesn't appear that there is one. So that's sort of where I am currently on it. I don't mean to be a Scrooge. It's just, there's a law and there's bylaws, and our job is to just enforce them. So.
I agree.
I agree too, yeah, I don't see the hardship.
So it sounds, if we have no more comments, then we need to close the public hearing.
Yeah, I can just, if the chair would permit, I think staff can speak to historically, the board considering shape and size as a hardship. Now, of course, that does not need to apply tonight. But I would suggest that the shape, the size of the lot, and the amount of activities on it was at some point in discussion mentioned as requiring the need to rotate multiple messages in order to account for the number and the area that this parcel takes up.
Yeah, I mean, where I view the size as being a variable is because it is a big campus, and there's kids that are walking from the school all the way down to the football field, and so that's a big area, and that's where the size, to me, I can wrap my mind around that as a variable.
Yeah, again, I just, and again, I'm not trying to be oppositional. It's just the kids are also all walking through the front door of the school to go into the school, and you could put a sign there that has the information they need, and everybody's got a phone and everybody's got a computer. I don't know. That's just sort of where my head's at. I don't see the relationship between the size of the parcel and whether or not the sign changes.
So procedurally, we're being asked for a variance because the digital message board that you would like to install, which meets size and location restrictions, without coming before us at all. The only reason you're coming before us is because you want to change the message multiple times in a 24-hour period. And what we're saying is you may not need a variance at all if you don't change that message multiple times in the 24-hour period. Now, I think we might need to have the building inspector make sure that if they were to only have one message in a given 24-hour period, they meet the zoning bylaw without any variance.
I think I could confidently say that is
Okay.
correct.
So, you have to think about how important it is to have those messages change multiple times. Because if we were to vote on this variance right now, it may not pass. So then what's the next step?
So,
In the interest of being a good neighbor, I think we've shown a good faith effort to come to a compromise that, or conversely, there's no restrictions and we don't have to shut the sign off at 9 o'clock at night. So I
Right.
don't want
I
to
see.
threaten
Yes.
people. That's not
That's
my
right.
intention.
That's right.
But I'm, I
Correct.
think it, might behoove
Compromise.
the board.
I just want to make sure I understand what you just said. So you're saying that if we wouldn't give you a variance, you can change the sign?
No,
That you would-
no,
No,
if he
there's
doesn't
no-
need the variance.
If you don't need the variance, but then your plan would be to leave the sign on all night?
Technically, we
Well,
could,
by
or
right-
any other business
No,
could.
I understand. I'm just
I'm
surprised.
not trying to be facetious in
No,
any way.
I'm just surprised that's where this is going.
Well, that's the truth, because we could put the sign up and have one message a day.
Right. I guess I don't know how
I'm
productive
not
that is if
here
neighbors are
to
expressing.
irritate people or get, involved with my neighbors. We're trying to work with the town.
No,
and-
apparently.
and
No, that's a
work
very
with the board.
interesting way of looking at it. All right.
I think just the only other thing I'll add, again, when we talk about static sign, I mean, we weren't looking to put up 5 scrolling messages throughout the day. I think we were looking to have the ability to announce 1 or 2 different events. And so, while I think several comments have been made about, the concern for the changing of messages, our expectation that would happen once or twice a day at one point in time, and then that message would be static for X number of hours. And so I don't know if the board would be amenable to even, like I had mentioned earlier, to allowing 2 messages, one during the day and then one, in the evening that, helps us, from a traffic and possibly safety concern that's been brought up a number of times, to promote an event or parking or welcome. There are people that come from out of town all the time that, don't necessarily know where to go, which driveway to pull into. This shouldn't be a distraction in terms of the sign changing, and scrolling, it would still be a static sign, but at some point during the day, it would switch at, 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the afternoon from whatever it was broadcasting in the morning to something else in the evening. So it'd really be that period of time, several minutes or, seconds that it takes to change the message, because otherwise what you're saying is we can continue to broadcasting something for 24 hours and change it the following day. I guess, could we do that, once or twice during the day?
Right. So your compromise, what you're suggesting is, rather than the 5 that you came originally in front of us for, you'd be willing to reduce it to a limited number, say to 2 or 3, I think we've discussed.
Correct.
Turning the sign off at 9 PM and turning it back on at 5 AM.
Correct.
5 AM seems early to me. I would say 6 would feel better, but, and again, just to reiterate, you have the right to put the sign up and keep it static and change it once a day, every day.
Correct.
So, Madam Chair.
Yes.
May I jump in with just a procedural point, right?
Sure.
So the board could close the public hearing and take a vote, or the applicant, or at the board's request, or, the applicant at the board, whatever. Basically, the applicant could request a continuance if they feel that they want to go back, speak to perhaps other people at the school, and come back next month with a revised proposal for the board. Now, that could be at your request, and if the board were to accept it, we would come back next month and we would discuss this again. If the board does vote to deny tonight, and you ask for a vote and it goes to a vote and the board denies, you would not be able to return with a similar proposal without a number of additional steps that would be a little bit difficult to perform.
So the suggestion is to continue it, gather more information.
Yeah.
Are you requesting a continuation of the hearing?
We would like to request a continuation, yes.
Okay, thank you. I think procedurally we have to close the public hearing first.
No.
No.
We want to keep it open.
We'll keep it open so that we can.
Yeah.
So the motion would just be to continue.
Actually, no, we're not.
No, we're not done.
It's
Well,
public comment.
It's up to the board to take, you could ask to take comment now, but public comment would be able to be taken next month as well.
Okay, so we are gonna, I think they are requesting a continuation. I think the board would agree that that is in the best interest of everyone. Unless you feel like there's something that you can add that might change our vote tonight, I think.
No, I just was wondering, would this open up a precedence for other people in town to do the same thing with the sign?
No.
Well, no, because we have to operate on each hearing that comes in front of us is unique, and the circumstances are unique, so we don't rest our decisions on precedent.
Correct.
So
Each variance is unique.
Correct.
Taken individually.
So I would ask if I could get a motion for a continuation?
Motion to continue the hearing for 378 Main Street, Residence A, St. John's High School of Worcester County.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Could you continue to time and date certain?
Oh, excuse me.
You want to just amend that to
Sorry.
6:30?
March
March 28th.
28th
sorry.
at 6:30. You can't.
Thank you.
I don't think, or we have to recess. Do we have to recess? We have a member that needs to.
I go to bed.
10-minute recess, just vote for a 10-minute
Move for a
recess.
10-minute recess?
Move for a 10-minute recess.
Aye.
Second, aye.
All in favor, aye.
Come on, give me that second.
Our next 6:30 public hearing is to hear the appeal of Sandra and Roger Pedersen of 479 Oak Street, Shrewsbury, Mass., for a special permit and variance to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 6, Table 1, and Section 2, definitions to construct an in-law addition and a detached accessory structure upon property located at 479 Oak Street in the Residence B2 District. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 45, Plot 152001. Welcome, thank you for your patience. If I could have you introduce yourself and let us know what you're
Good
planning on doing.
evening, Roger and Sandra Pedersen, 479 Oak Street, Residence B2 zoning district. We are requesting or applying for a variance and a special permit for an in-law detached apartment in an existing accessory building, which would be the barn, on our property at 479 Oak Street. The barn was built 30 years ago. The house was built 2 years after that. We understand that the variance requires a hardship, like you stated in some of the last ones today. We believe due to the conditions of the lot size, the topography, and the shape, gives us that hardship that we are in need of for the variance. When the barn was built, it's built on ledge. And I think in the package was pictures of outcroppings of ledge. And the topography is all over the place, as you can see in some of the pictures there. What else do we have here? There are a couple of other things that I want to bring attention to. There's two properties in Shrewsbury that are very similar and like to what I'm asking for. One of them is 44 Gold Street, which is very similar. Actually, it's a large lot like I have. All of my buildings on my lot also are conforming to all the setbacks. The other one I would like to bring attention to is a half a mile from me. It's in 299 South Quinsigamon Ave, on the corner of Fairfax and South Quinsigamon. The house, when they applied for the same variance and special permit at the time, the garage and apartment did not exist. My building has been there for 30 years. So they were granted a variance and a special permit and were allowed to build a non-conforming garage and in-law apartment on a tiny lot. We do understand some of the comments that were the decision comments, that there are conditions on approval, and that's no problem at all. The in-law apartment shall not be occupied by more than 3 people related by blood or marriage. That's understandable. And this would only be for as long as we own the property. Now, I'm going to be 62, and I've lived in Shrewsbury for 62 years. So I've got tenure. My wife grew up in Shrewsbury and lived all her life also. We're not going anywhere. I hope. I'd like to open it up to any questions that you might have.
Thank you.
I think
McAllister, any questions, comments?
No, pretty
Further instructions?
straightforward, I would say. It's a variance from the definition of an in-law, just to remind the board of that. Our definition says it must be a portion of the dwelling. A detached in-law is inherently not a portion of that dwelling, so that's what the variance is for specifically.
I see. Okay. Comments, board? Peter?
Yeah, it sounds to me like you do meet the requirements for a variance. You have ledge on your property, which would make it difficult to add on to the existing main structure, and you also have an existing structure that can be retrofitted. So requiring you to do something otherwise would potentially be a hardship. And same as to the special permit, you're saying that one additional person will be living there. Just looking at the map, it looks like you have plenty of room for parking.
Yes.
It doesn't sound like there would be a lot of people coming and going if it's just one additional person living there, so I don't see any nuisance issues.
I
or
have
anything like that.
contacted most of my neighbors. They have absolutely no problem with it. I probably should have brought documentation with that, but also there's no nuisance, noise, sound, or anything like that. I think we've covered everything.
Yeah, so
Hopefully.
it sounds to me like you meet the requirements for both, so I'm all set.
Lisa?
I also have no problem with this, and the fact that it's in an existing accessory structure, and that doesn't exactly meet with our definition. This accessory structure will now become a dwelling structure, and a portion of it will be an in-law. I have no problem.
Okay, great. Patrick?
I have no problems with it at all, and the fact that it's a bond makes it even better.
Ann?
Patrick loves a barn.
Okay. Right, what they all said.
Very strange
Oh.
shaped lot.
Yeah.
Looks like an electric guitar.
Topography, definitely, and your, checked off every box.
Does.
We have some late night humor here from the zoning board of appeals. Okay, so this is a public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to be heard on this matter? Sir?
Hi, good evening, gentlemen. My name is Shibu Matthew. I own the property 89 Grace Avenue, Shrewsbury. My backyard is close to this new barn they are going to build. In fact, my property, I have the site plan with me. It is 15,000 square feet, and which included a New England Power Company easement line. Easement means everybody knows, like, it is a share between both the property. At present, the other person, the other property owner, he put like a trailer and then old stuff, some old vehicles and stuff in the easement line. So my concern is for this, I don't care about like building a new house, which is a good thing, but he is capable of building structures by himself. Last summer, he was building like a 2-truck garage in the property of his own property by himself. And I have an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old kid. They were always playing in the backyard. It was a big nuisance and a big sound and everything. I didn't know that we can testify or do the concern over here in the board. So again, coming back to the point, if he built a house, he is capable of putting a fence by himself, because I see the other side of his property, he already put a fence by himself, and he has an acumen of doing a construction by himself. So if he put a fence, and since there's an easement in the power line down, or like power failure or something like that in New England weather, the utility vehicle should come through my property, because I cannot put any fence or anything, and I'm by law I am submitted myself to that law. By zoning property, utility vehicles should pass through my property, and I'm allowing that. Since this is within the 300 feet, the space, I'm concerned about this construction of this house.
You are aware that it's an existing structure?
I know that, yeah.
Okay.
It's a barn. and
Yeah,
it's a-
that was one of the criteria that we thought about. We don't want to add any more footprint to
Okay.
anything.
Yeah, there's
Fair.
nothing else gonna be built.
Okay,
It's just
okay.
the interior.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
I don't,
I think I have some comments here from board members.
Yeah, I would just say, so, to the extent that there's an
Thank you,
issue.
sir.
To the extent that there's an issue with things being in the easement that shouldn't be there, that's more an issue, I think, for the easement holder than it is for us. And as far as a fence, I think there's not really anything that I think we can do about that. It sounds like we're talking about sort of retrofitting an existing structure, and so it's not a situation where I think the board would normally condition the construction of a fence or something like that, as we've maybe done in the past. So I appreciate you sharing your concerns. I'm just not sure there's much that this board has the power to do about them.
Lisa?
I won't add to it. I was a little confused as to what the concern is. There is, the easement is not on this property. It's,
They've actually, can I interject here?
sure.
Sure.
That easement, they've taken that power line out. That power, they actually went, when I've been here since '85. There used to be 2 poles for the power line that came through there, and it split that lot line that he's talking about. And then 10 years ago, they came through and they took the 2 metal poles out and they went to a center pole. They went through all the work to retrofit just the 1 center pole on the lot line. And then they took it all out. They did all that work. I couldn't believe it. And then they took it all out, because now I guess that feed is coming through over the Lake Bridge, I believe, when they did the bridge over.
So I just want to say, you have a certified plot plan here for your application to do this in-law apartment, and there's no sign of any easement on your property.
No, there is.
So I just want to help the abutter understand a little bit more. So you may have an easement on your property, not the property that's before us, and you take great care to not put anything on that easement. The appellant before us is simply adding a apartment into an existing structure that has nothing to do with your easement. And if you don't like the construction that's going on there, you're welcome to call our police department and complain about noise, but we have a noise bylaw, and I'm sure they're going to abide by that. So I didn't understand the concern from the abutter. That's in relation to this, that's all I
Okay.
had to say.
Anyone else wish to be heard on the matter? Okay, can I get a motion to close the public hearing, please?
Motion to close public hearing?
Can I get a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve a special permit under Section 6, Table 1, to construct a detached in-law apartment in an existing accessory structure, and also a variance under Section 2, Definitions, to construct a detached in-law apartment in an existing accessory structure at 479 Oak Street in the Residence B2 District for Sandra and Roger Pedersen.
Can I get a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next up on our agenda, last up on our agenda, is to hear the appeal of Shrewsbury Land Property Owner LLC, 133 Pearl Street, Suite 300, Boston, Mass., for a variance to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaws under Section 7, Table 1, footnote 12, to construct a distribution center with loading and unloading in the front of the building upon property located at 440 Hartford Turnpike in the Limited Industrial District. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 54, Plot 015000. Good evening, welcome. State your name for the record, please.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Attorney Michael Brangwin, on behalf of the applicant. And if you'll bear with me, it looks like I've successfully set up the screen here. I am from the law firm of Fletcher Tilton. With me tonight, we also have our project engineer, Gene Sullivan, who's sitting with me. And we have two members of our development team in the audience as well to answer any questions from the board. So the applicant seeks approval for the construction of a new 133,750 square foot industrial building at 440 Hartford Turnpike. And that application requires relief from Section 7, Use Table footnote 12, which requires all loading activity to be conducted at the rear of the building. The property currently is an undeveloped lot and wooded area, and the parcel is a corner lot that on Hartford Turnpike that is also bordered by Stony Hill Road, and it's across Route 20 from the Russell Industrial Center. So I will show you on the screen the proposed site plan here. You can see at the top of this image, the front loading at the building. Hartford Turnpike is at the front of the building, and then the side is Stony Hill Road. I also have an elevation. Oh, let me go back. This is just a simple elevation rendering, and these are some renderings showing the structure as proposed with front loading. So this is the front of the building, and here, I think this is kind of a key image for your consideration. This is the rear of the building as proposed. So under the zoning bylaw, if the letter intent of the bylaw was enforced, the zoning would take place in the rear along this tree line. So getting to the criteria of a variance that this board must consider, the unusual circumstances for this lot are, I guess, primarily the topography of the lot has a substantial impact on its development. You can see that there are proposed retaining walls. There is a steep topographical grade change, which requires retaining walls on one side and then kind of an elevated construction further down along the side of the building. Combine that with the fact that this parcel is in the limited industrial district, but immediately behind the building where loading activity would normally take place, you can see this tree line, and there is a residential district immediately behind the building. So the hardship really is that a literal enforcement of the code would force the applicant to conduct loading activities in a less practical location with these grade changes that really would be more impactful on the surrounding neighborhood. It would have loading activities next to a residential district. Whereas, as proposed, you can see the loading activity along Hartford Turnpike. There's industrial uses all along this area. It's much more in conformity with, I think, what the intent of the code is, which is to conduct loading activities at a location that is least impactful to surrounding uses. And certainly here, given the location of this parcel, the topography, and the surrounding just uses in general, we feel that this is a much more appropriate location for the loading and would in fact be better for our neighbors and better for us, better for everybody involved. So I guess in short, that's our presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm sure our team is happy to answer any questions. But we feel the requirements for a variance are satisfied, and we ask for approval to allow for loading activities at the front of the building.
Thank you. Peter?
So I guess my first question is the topography. It looks to me like it would be more difficult to position the building to load in the back because the slope is kind of, at least in this picture, kind of coming towards us. So in other words, you'd have to build up.
It's coming from the upper left-hand corner down towards Stony Brook, and it's about 50 feet.
Right, so you'd have to build up significantly more to accommodate trucks going around behind, and
Right.
is that right? So I think in that, I wanted to make sure I was understanding that, because I think if that's true, then I think the topography is definitely a hardship here. And I think it ends up being kind of an added benefit, so to speak, that the loading would take place further away from the residential area. And that just so happens to be sort of an outgrowth of the fact that the topography makes it better to do it that way anyway, and it would be a hardship to have you do it the other way around. So I think that it looks to me like the criteria for a variance is met.
I agree. The hardship is met. You've provided enough evidence, and I do believe your plan is more in keeping with neighboring uses. You've got a residential neighborhood behind you, and you've got industrial uses across the street. It makes perfect sense to me.
Patrick?
I agree.
Ann?
I agree.
I agree as well. Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to be heard on this matter? Sir, can you state your name for the record, your address, please?
My name is Joe Taylor. I live at 132 Stony Hill. Right, I'm in a butter. And the only reason I'm at this hearing is because I got my butter letter in the mail. So apologize if some of my questions were probably more appropriate for the planning meeting, which I did not know was even going on, because this is the first time I've heard of this at all.
Oh, wow.
I hadn't heard of this since the 40B project.
Uh-huh.
So
We
this is the
haven't
first
made-
time.
We haven't made any filings with planning.
So, thank you. So but I have to say, what I just heard, which you're very, if it was up to me, I'd vote for that variance immediately. I'd love the idea that they're gonna take trucks in and out of Route 20 instead of around the back. I'd be watching the trucks from my backyard if they were coming
Right.
back. So I love their proposals tonight. But, so I just have questions for the developer, just questions, really, because I don't know anything about this until just now. Who's the owner? Who's the name of the building? Who's the name of the trucking company that's gonna be doing this?
So we don't have a tenant at this time. We are just starting the planning and approval process. The first step for us is to get this variance issued so that we can
Okay.
start working on stormwater, utilities, and things of that nature.
All right, well, thank you. All right, so it's
It's a
working.
distribution warehouse.
And you don't have a tenant yet?
We do
Okay.
not have a tenant
Okay,
at
thank
this
you.
time.
So you can't answer my other question, which is, what were the business hours gonna be? You can't answer that.
We
Does the
cannot.
town have any bylaws or any such thing about this for
We
noise,
actually have an
about
expert
business
here on
hours? I don't know.
Been a long night.
I'm curious.
You know, not in our zoning bylaw, and that's what I can confidently speak to. But I would say, and I'm just reiterating that this will all go before the planning board as well.
Okay.
And that's really, I think, when it would be best to address the uses on the site, kind of what the site will look like. It'll be a site plan approval, I believe, is what you're going for. You don't need any additional special permits.
But that's a public hearing as well, right?
But that is a
Planning?
public
Yeah,
hearing,
okay.
so I would encourage you to raise some.
I think I will, but since right here, I'm gonna take advantage of this time right now, if you don't mind. So, probably the planning board, I'm gonna ask his questions. I'll ask you right now, though, because I am in a butter. Is it okay if I go up to the screen? It'd be easier if I
Yes,
show you.
please do.
So, I'm concerned about a couple of things. On this diagram, my house is right, I'm within 300 feet of this corner.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm curious, and my neighbors that live on the top of Thistle Hill, which you already showed,
Mhm.
right behind you too, all right? Noise and visual barriers and sound barriers. Are you thinking about putting trees or some sort of wall or some sort of noise, visual and or audio, acoustic rather, sound barriers between us and the neighborhood behind you?
I can answer that. So we are just beginning, we are looking at sound studies and doing work on that. There is gonna be a retaining wall behind our building, and frankly, we think the building's gonna be the best sound barrier you're ever gonna get. It's gonna block out all your truck noise.
Years ago, the other proposal, they were proposing putting up different sized trees and such things for visual barriers.
Along there, well, we're hoping to maintain a lot of the buffer that's already there, along the property line. But we'll be doing additional landscaping and screening along there.
And that'll be covered at planning board.
Yes, it's just a little early for.
Right, and the other question, of course, is, I know I've seen your surveyors out there. I was wondering what they were for, now I know what they're out there for. You've probably seen, have you seen all the muddy water down Stony Hill Road? So what happened, when they cleared the trees for this previous project, that never happened, all the trees that were sucking up the water were gone. So now all the water is draining down Stony Hill Road. It's draining down the sidewalk. You get this, anytime it rains, you get this muddy river. Literally, it's a muddy river that goes down the sidewalk in the street right in front of my house, every single time it rains.
On our side of the street?
On Stony Hill side.
No, on which side?
Okay, can we,
Yep,
excuse me, public hearing, we gotta work through the chair here.
okay.
Thank you.
So what my question, again, it's probably got planning board and discussion, but are you gonna, do you think this construction is gonna ameliorate the water drainage problem that has happened because the trees have been cleared and the water is literally running off the hill onto Stony Hill Road into our neighborhood?
Well, in simple terms, our
Okay.
stormwater designs are gonna have to be able to control all the runoff our site generates.
So,
What happened prior to this new owner, I can't really comment on that.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to ask you to stick to items relative to this hearing, if I could, and again,
Yeah.
without disrespecting your time.
Yeah.
A lot of this will be handled at
And in
the
the
planning board.
Oh, okay,
Correct.
all right, well, thank you
Correct.
for, I just was curious.
No, you're allowed to be curious, that's what we're
All
here
right,
for.
thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter?
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
David McCurry, I'm at 108 Stony Hill Road, and this is probably planning board as well, but I figured I'd ask it. Right now, there's no plans for putting any access to Stony Hill Road in the back to the building, correct?
There will not be access to the property off
Okay,
Stony Hill.
because that was a big, Joe brought up the 40B projects, and that was a big one for us, so.
Aware of that.
Just want to make sure that that's still going to be the case.
No, what you're seeing is our plan.
Okay, I mean, it looks great, and I'm for putting the docks facing Route 20 as well. I think that's a great idea, and I think overall, as long as you can provide that visual barrier, sound barrier all around the neighborhood, including Stony Hill Road, and I'm sure this will come up in the planning board, then that's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Move to close the public hearing?
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Can I get a motion, please?
I move to approve a variance under Section 6, Table 1, footnote 12, to construct a distribution center with loading and unloading in the front of the building at 440 Hartford Turnpike in the Limited Industrial District for Shrewsbury Land Property Owner, LLC.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board.
Can I get a motion to close the public hearing for this evening?
Move to adjourn.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
I know it's gonna go before the planning board, I remember.
Oh, there you go.
I think there's